I already know people are going to be commenting, but Karli killed people. She was evil. Like, that's not the entire point of this video. So, I was very invested in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier because I have a deep-seated love for Sam Wilson and James Bucharest Barnes, I guess, but mostly Sam. I love him. And I do love the Mackie dynamic with Sebastian Stan because their chemistry and friendship is iconic. I did do episode commentaries for the first 5 episodes. I didn't do one for the 6th one, so I'm kind of rolling my commentary for that into this video. So who is Karli Morgenthau, if you didn't watch the series? So she's a character based on Karl Morgenthau from the comics. His alias is the Flag Smasher. Yeah, I couldn't believe there was actual textual basis for that. I really thought the Pentagon was funding that part, but I guess Marvel was really just creating propaganda for free. His character is described as a freedom fighter whose goal is to liberate Earth from the oppression of national rule. I guess smash borders again, just like in the show, the ideology, not bad, but the connotation. In the comics, he actually ends up teaming up with the new Captain America, John Walker, along with Battlestar, rest in peace, Hoskins. Them changing Carl to Karli and making Karli a mixed-race young woman was an interesting choice given her ultimate fate in the show. But before we get into that, let's take a step back and get a look at the broader picture. Because we're going to go to TV tropes. It's a great website to read through various tropes that appear in popular media, and also a great way to waste hours of your time. The page we're going to focus on is the well-intentioned extremist. I'll just read that off verbatim. Well-intentioned extremist is a villain who has an overall goal which the heroes can appreciate in principle, but whose methods of pursuing said goal, such as mass murder, are problematic. Despite any sympathy they may have for their cause, the heroes have no choice but to stop them. The villain may be out for simple revenge against a person, corporation, or other entity that has undeniably wronged them. Again, the heroes may sympathize with their plight, but are obliged to stop them because they care not who gets in the way of their planned revenge. However, the heroes will often investigate the villain's grievance themselves and will complement stopping the villain with bringing the offending party to justice as well. Basically just centrism, right? But like a very idealized version of centrism where things actually get done. Maybe they started out with actions as good as their intentions, but were forced to take more extreme measures. Either way, it's a common end result of jumping off the slippery slope. Their favorite phrase is, "I did what I had to do." The page defines 4 variations of this trope, including the problem is the goal, the problem is the consequences, the problem is the problem, and then the problem is the means. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to be focusing on the problem is the means, as in the villain has noble goals, but their means of achieving them are problematic. It was actually kind of hard for me to find scholarly articles studying this trend in film. I may just be bad at researching though, so if you have any suggestions for further reading, please let me know in the comments. I did find this Culture article written in 2019 titled, "A New Trend Among Superhero Movies. The Villains Are Right," by Dan Schindel. And I feel like it's only gotten more true with time. Schindel discusses the pivot from having villains be evil caricatures of bad ideas and bad intentions to morally gray, sympathetic characters with goals that make a lot of sense. There was the Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming, who represented the marginalized working class that was directly harmed by the actions of billionaire playboy philanthropist Tony Stark. Do y'all remember that? I remember sitting in the theater like, wait, so Tony Stark literally put all these guys out of a job and he never gets any heat for it? In fact, he actually takes Peter Parker and makes him a mini Iron Man, as if Peter's whole thing isn't your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I didn't realize that neighborhood was a gated community. I think to some extent, Marvel must have recognized that it wouldn't play well to completely villainize the guy. So he kind of just becomes more of like a lawful evil type of villain. He plays by the rules, not revealing Peter's identity, and he's quietly jailed, Our next villain does not get similar grace extended to them. In the same article, Schindel brings up Eric Killmonger from Black Panther. He states, When movies can't contradict their bad guys, they resort to dirtier play to ensure viewers root for who they're supposed to. Black Panther undermines Killmonger's anger at Wakanda for electing isolationism instead of helping black people around the world by having him frequently murder women. The movie also eventually reveals that Killmonger just wants to form his own empire, seeking black supremacy instead of equality, disturbingly becoming an avatar of what many racists claim civil rights activists really want. Killmonger's political resentments are also sublimated into his jealousy of his cousin T'Challa. Ultimately, we see that he doesn't really care about saving the world's black people. This happens even as the film halfway accepts his arguments, as T'Challa is moved to open up Wakanda by the end. But instead of taking any strong stance against structural inequality in other nations, he builds some outreach centers. A perfect example of this kind of wishy-washy attitude toward radicals is when Killmonger is at a museum in the African Arts exhibit. This scene was filmed in the High Museum of Art in Atlanta, according to Gizmodo, but it serves as a thinly veiled stand-in for London's British Museum. The harsh truth of the matter is that most of these museums did steal from non-white countries that they had previously colonized or imperialized, taking artifacts and stealing art pieces to display for their visitors to ogle at. And then Killmonger poisons the art curator and steals the piece he had been eyeing after making the comment, "How do you think your ancestors got these? Do you think they paid a fair price? Or did they take it like they took everything else?" And he's absolutely correct, though. And sure, the argument might be that he shouldn't have killed the woman to achieve his goals, but that's the point, right? The narrative is trying to undermine his message by saying, see, even if he has a point, he's definitely evil because he just killed that nice blonde woman, and stealing is bad in modern times. This actually mirrors another conversation that's been happening at the international level for a while now. I'll try and simplify the concepts for clarity, but the basic idea is this. Western European countries and America underwent their industrial revolutions in around the 18th, 19th centuries, right? These were periods of rapid economic growth and exponential population booms. But these were also times that were wildly detrimental to the environment. Entire forests would be cut down to make way for new settlements and farming. Stacks of smoke would be pumped into the sky as the factories pumped out textile after textile and new assembly item after new assembly item. And all of this was terrible for the environment, of course. And we recognize that now, right? We've supposedly gotten more knowledgeable about it, and we understand that there should be efforts made to be more sustainable. If countries are going to develop now, they should do so in a way that's sustainable and good for the environment. The problem comes when international organizations and like the United Nations try to place these sustainable development goals on developing nations. Because then it's like, wait a minute. You all irreversibly f***ed over the planet in your quest for wealth and power. But now that you're at the top, it's all, actually wait, but the environment. Not to mention the fact that most of this wealth was built on the backs of peoples from colonized and imperialized countries and out of materials stolen from their countries in the first place. Like, did you know that if the UK were to repay India for all it's stolen from the years of colonialism and imperialism, it would owe over $45 trillion? That's trillion with a T. How do you reconcile that kind of damage with modern ideas about sustainability or being a responsible world power? Basically, how do you reconcile that kind of damage with modern ideas about what kinds of means are acceptable to achieve your goals? And this is the ultimate problem with the recent trend of supervillains. The argument always is their goals are noble, but their means are inexcusable. But when the villains are also parts of marginalized groups, as they typically are, especially more so in recent times, as in the case of Karli and the rest of the Flag Smashers, marginalized groups that have gotten to their disadvantaged position in life as a result of unfair treatment and targeted violence, why is the burden then on them to follow the rules in the first place? Rules that were put into place by the very same structures and the very same groups of people that put them in this disadvantaged position. Karli and the Flag Smashers' goals made a lot of sense. In a time of global upheaval with record numbers of refugees and economic disparity, a story about a group of refugees that have been overlooked and forgotten by the very organizations and leaders that are meant to represent them is not unique. Positioning them as having morally acceptable goals but being irresponsible in their methods is not only a cheap cop-out of exploring these issues in a meaningful way, but also applies a skewed perception of what morally acceptable means look like. If you've been following what's been happening with Palestine lately, which if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I will link some more resources to further educate yourself in the description below. But I want you to take a look at this news clip where an interviewer is asking about the protests going on about the mistreatment of Palestinians.
Do you support the protests, the violent protests that have erupted in solidarity with you and other families in your position right now?
Do you support the violent dispossession of me and my family?
I'm just asking if you support the protests that are taking place in support of your family.
I support popular protests taking place against ethnic cleansing, yes.
It's not on the same scale because I'm talking about fictional stuff and this is the real world, but you can see these kinds of respectability politics and this tone policing reflected in real life too. As you could see in the previous clip I just showed, the interviewer was focusing on the means when people are being violently forced out of their homes. People are being killed and systematically harmed. And so many people who self-identified as allies and anti-racists came out of the woodwork to denounce Black Lives Matter protests last year after the murder of George Floyd because it was wrong what happened, but I don't condone the protesters' actions. Even when they were engaging in civil disobedience, peaceful protests, or even simply stating the fact that in 2020, cops killed 1,021 people. And that's just about the peaceful protests. And when we passively accept the idea that radical ideas or any idea even slightly challenging the status quo is only acceptable in a watered down, soft and sweet way, it does impact the way that popular culture responds in real life. It's really frustrating to see, honestly, because especially when so many of these issues are deeply ingrained in American society and sometimes require something that would end up uprooting the whole system. Because at the end of the day, if it's a society that wouldn't survive without racist, classist, and misogynistic systems, I don't even want it. If you're similarly frustrated, I'm linking a few organizations down below that are putting in the work and enacting meaningful change for all of us. Don't feel guilty about not being able to donate much. Even $1 helps if you're able to do so. I usually try to donate like a minimum of around $5 to causes that I like to support because that's what's accessible for me, if you'd like kind of like a baseline. And that is the Karli Morgenthau problem. Please let me know what you thought. I just had a lot of feelings about Karli and the Flag Smashers and how everything was handled, how we went from the showrunners showing the police racially profiling Sam Wilson in one episode to like the cops fondly looking at Bucky in the last episode going all Lieutenant Barnes, and then Bucky kind of just slapping him on the shoulder like he's an old buddy. Like, what? I don't know. It's just like, I know that we're all like here with like watered down versions of military propaganda, but like, man, you would think they'd rein it in sometimes. But yeah, so please let me know what you thought of this video. If you have any other thoughts, I'm open to other opinions and perspectives, and please like the video, for the engagement. I also have a Patreon, where you can support me because I don't know, if you just like me and you want to support me, that's what that's there for. And I do love money, so, Oh, I also forgot. Let me just plug my merch real quick. Yeah, that's also down there. It's really cute. And I've had a few people actually receive their merch and they've worn it around in public. Nobody knows it's YouTuber merch. It's super discreet and super cute. So, yeah. All right. Thank you for watching.